Folks, Shelby here, Village Earth Right, and yeah, I've really been enjoying. I've gotten this great opportunity to run the Huddig now on an actual job. I did basically 2 days of work, and then they're taking off to the next guy because obviously this is just a demo. This machine's kind of running around the country to various people, and I happen to have a smallish job, but one that fit this machine, and I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to actually put it to work and get kind of comfortable in it. It's a really complicated machine. It's got a lot of capabilities. I would say there's a lot of capability that this machine has that perhaps is lost on a small residential excavation job. They were nice, sort of its nice features, but definitely more tuned towards cable plowing or off-road utility work. Just started thinking about trying to go over some more detail while I've got it with you folks about what this machine could be capable of, how I found it, how it was to operate. It was a pleasure to operate. The controls are super smooth, super easy. I had initially, when I first tried demoing it, or not demoing, but sort of getting an opportunity to check it out down in North Carolina, my first review of this, I thought it was maybe a little bit slow, but I guess it was really just me moving slow because I was sort of in a new machine, trying to be careful. This thing could move the back end wicked fast, so definitely not a slow operating machine. In fact, it swings almost too fast if you're not careful. It's definitely way faster at swinging that rear boom than a normal excavator is at spinning around, which makes sense. I mean, it's just moving the boom, it's not moving the whole machine. So pretty good swing power and pretty good speed on that. And obviously the big thing getting used to is when you're articulating and you go to swing boom as well. That's always a little bit funny because you're counteracting, which I sort of went over in the other video and stuff. But that's something I got a little more used to how that feels driving backwards, using the mirrors more and try not to always be looking behind myself when I was backing up because it's got good mirrors. I don't know, you can sort of see over there, and the lighting it's terrible. All the winter snow does not make for good lighting. I definitely want to go over some more on the computer. So I just wanted to sort of go over some of these things now that I've gotten more experience with them and to kind of talk through the operation of this machine, because there's a lot going on. Like I said, it didn't take me, I put probably 12 hours here. I'll turn off the machine. Speaking of which, you turn off the machine with F7, which you could put on any of these buttons, and that's one of the things about this machine that's so incredible, is how customizable the buttons are. But basically, you've got this switch right here is one thing that I really wanted to talk about, because it was something that it confused me at first. I found uses for it. I got used to it. It's definitely something that I'm not used to coming from either excavators or just a wheel loader or whatever. Is it has this center pivot lock, and so the front of the machine here, down at the pivot, right, this whole machine here tilts like that when you're driving around, and obviously you don't want that when you're facing the back, because when you go to swing over the back, the whole machine will tip one way. And so what happens when you let off the throttle is it automatically locks the center so that it keeps the whole machine rigid, and then you now have a counterweight, which you sort of don't have a counterweight without it locked. You can have it permanently locked, which I ended up driving around with it in the permanently locked position for a little while, right? I just flipped that switch and now it's locked even if I step on the throttle. And where that comes into play, which was really nice, is I had to do a little back grading after I was done, digging around the foundation. And by locking that and back grading, I was now back grading with a rigid body machine, and so it wasn't, normally when you're back rating with a wheel loader and it's oscillating all over the place, it's really hard to keep a flat plane, because when your back end is dropping and your front end is tilting, and you're sort of not, there's nothing creating a plane. Whereas on this machine, when I was able to do that, I was able to actually have my rear tires kind of follow the plane, and the front axle and the front blade follow the plane. It just made grading things out with the front blade way better. Almost, kind of more skid steer, or like a tractor, I guess. It functioned more like a tractor than a wheel loader. So that was kind of cool. Obviously, if you're super rough terrain, you don't want to do that, because you don't want to be putting a lot of forces on it. But it is definitely comes in handy. I mean, mostly run it in this position so that when you're stopped, it's locked, and when you're moving, you're not. So you're running, you're sort of driving comfortably rather than rocking all over the place on it. Although I actually found that sometimes it actually drove a little bit smoother when it was in the locked position, just because it kind of, like I said, it kind of keeps, instead of rolling all over the place, the machine kind of maintains plane, and maybe a tire gets loose or light, so you don't get your traction, but you do get a more consistent ride over the ground. And then, if you do accidentally end up floating in some weird position, you just hit this is the unlock button, and then the machine will settle onto the ground, and then you can let it lock again. Once again, I try not, I feel like that was something I didn't want to do. If I was like really canted, I'd try to drive or move to level out first before unlocking, just so I wasn't, because I hit that button once, I went ka-chunk, and it falls in place, which is probably okay for the machine, but it's just anything like that. I hate having a machine, ka-chunk anywhere. Other things that are interesting about this control system is the blade float. So you got 3 modes. You got sort of fixed blade. That's what you want when you're digging in the ground, when you're you're sort of pushing into a big pile. But mostly I ran it on the blade float mode. If I'm just scooping into the pile, or moving the stuff, or back grading, obviously great. You just put it down on the ground. You put a little down pressure with the other joystick over there, and maintain your float, and you're at the right location. And then it has this third mode, which I don't know, I felt it. The whole bucket dropped. And that's travel mode. So that's where it's a cushioned drive mode for driving down the road. But obviously on a job site, you're going to have it in either normal, like, float mode, or rigid mode, not suspension mode. All right, so I've just been messing around a little bit more on this screen so I can sort of help actually do things. So, you get 2 different knobs. So this knob here, it goes for your main screens, up here and over here. So this is your information screen, is up top. It's going to give you all the voltages and temperatures and RPMs, fuel, things like that. Then down here, this is sort of your customizing. You got hydraulic flows, liters per minute, sets, your speeds. I'm really not going to kind of get way too into this, because it's beyond what I'm going to be able to learn in this short of time. But there's a few things that it's like, you got your fuel, which is, you got, so that's 2.5 gallons an hour, not bad. Got your miles, your hours, so we've done 118 miles on this machine, and 110 miles. So that's a mile, 1 mile an hour this machine drives. You got, obviously that's not, lifting on and off, auto, float, or something there. You got your different settings, right? So there's like basic settings, other things, that are just going to change a lot all at once. Pedal response. This is a cool thing, which I did kind of go over, right, is like, that's your speed. So do you want it to accelerate and stop softly, or do you want it to accelerate and stop harshly? So, when you're on a job on the site, it's kind of nice in the sport mode, because, you stop and start pretty quickly. So, when you're crawling up to a hole, it'll stop. Whereas soft mode, it might kind of keep creeping a little bit as you let off, just so you end up with a nice soft stop. But so that's better for kind of running down the road, probably. You know, this is your functions, right? So here's engine on off. Well, that could just be something else. So, you know, you don't have to have it be F7. It could be whatever it is that makes sense to you. Windshield wiper timers, your auto grease, you can, you know, change your auto grease information here. I'm obviously not going to mess with it, not my machine, and I'm sure it's set up correctly. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that going on, and then you have this other roller which is up. You know, if you're running it, it's under your hand, and that's more because some of these are stuff you might want to set on the fly. And then you get your traction. Oh, sorry, that wasn't speed, but that's okay. This is traction on and off, traction control. So you can change how you're doing your traction. Here is the speed. So this will drop your max speed. So that's something that is handy. This auto throttle thing, so when you're facing forwards and you step on the throttle, it functions like a loader, right? It just throttles up and down based on your foot pedals to change your speed. When you're facing the back end, it's a constant throttle, so it's smooth operation, and then the foot pedal is just speed, like a hydrostatic transmission would be, which, because it's a hydrostatic drivetrain. So, you know, so that's something, you know, you can change that. Mostly they ran it at 1400. We bumped it up to 1500. Just felt like it moved a little bit more responsively. Got other, you know, hydraulic capacities. Right now we're running at full hydraulics. Obviously, you know, you could drop your auxiliary. That's just going to run the, like if you're running a mower. And yeah, you got another one here that's, you know, don't know what that is. Emissions button. So this is also a touchscreen. I mean, and this is why it's a little bit confusing, because like the touchscreen selects things, but then you still have to use the jog dial to actually select the other thing. Right, like for instance here, right, I can't change that feature by touchscreen. I can turn the traction control on and off, but in order to change the percentage of traction control, I have to use the jog dial. And then also, if you hit the button and you're in here, it turns it on and off. So there's a lot of things that are kind of like, have a few different ways to get where you're going, that definitely would take some getting used to. Mostly in 2 days, I didn't touch any of this. I mean, this is, you know, if you're going to own it and you're going to do all sorts of off-road complicated things, I mean, I'm sure this will come into play. But for the most part, I just used the controls. I did try to make sure that even when I was facing forwards, I didn't use the steering wheel. I mean, to me, that should be for road travel only. You drive, obviously, with this, right? So if I step on here and I rotate, right, I'm going to steer the machine. And that means that you're kind of driving it the same way all the time, whether you're facing forwards or you're facing backwards. I mean, that's, you know, there's a few other buttons on here, your wipers and stuff like that, but, you know, in Huddig fashion, there's also a wiper button there. For most part, just about anything you can do over here, you can probably do here, because the whole point is to be able to run the whole machine with your hands in one position and not having to sort of reach over and press a whole lot of buttons all the time. That I just wanted to that came into play a lot more now with this time, that has me thinking about stuff, is the fact that it's not, right, it's run through the Huddig system. It's not rototilt or Encon or whatever. So it's a direct pipe install. So you'll see this whole mess of pipes here. There is still an electronic solenoid system, and it's up in there. You can kind of see there's a, let me go around to the other side, show you. There we go. So there's some solenoid. So you've got your secondary auxiliary and your gripper are with a foot button. So that's a little, so this is what they call a 4-pipe. Well, actually, really, this is a 6-pipe install, because you've got the 4 pipes for tilt and rotate, and then another separate independent set of pipes, which you can see up there, just for the quick hitch. And in order to run the quick hitch, this is plumbed directly. In order to drop this, you actually have to physically get out and you have to move the hoses to this one, and that's how they got that safety, so you don't ever drop the tilt rotator without unhooking all the hoses. But the thing that you'll notice about this one is it actually has another set of pipes. So this is actually an 8-pipe machine. So you could actually have the gripper or the secondary auxiliary running directly on its own set of pipes without a solenoid. And in fact, it's a bigger set of hoses. So clearly designed for sort of a higher flow attachment. If you wanted to run it down through the tilt rotator, right, you'd have to have a tilt rotator that was set up for that. This one is just one they threw on the demo unit that is a 6-pipe install, but certainly you could get, they do make the tilt rotators from most of these brands. They'll make them with an 8-pipe install. And then generally you're still running either the gripper or the auxiliary through that. And then one of those is also going to still be on a solenoid. It does have, so the full auto, I mean, this machine is completely fully auto grease, and there's nothing, except for the grippers, there's nothing you're going to need to manually grease. And so obviously it makes sense that they're also going to run that onto the tilt rotator as well, so that you really, you just don't have to really think about it. I always think if you're doing an auto grease system and you leave a few pieces out, those are just not going to get greased, because you're like, oh, it's auto grease, it's just going to grease, and then eventually you're like, oh shoot, right, what about that one thing that I didn't do? So I really appreciate that they bothered, especially on this demo machine, to make sure that the auto grease went all the way through to the tilt rotator. A few other things just to point out back here, that the trailer hitch. So a lot of people actually do run trailers behind these Huddigs. It's a little awkward, I would say, right? Because you got, you're a backhoe kind of thing here, you're a 180 excavator, and you got this trailer, and it's just, you just offset it to you, and you can scoop into it, you can put stuff outside. Great on a road job, not probably great on a job site where you're sort of running back and forth a lot, but if you're really, but if you're doing linear work, definitely would come in super handy. Obviously nice if you're running down the road trying to fill it up with materials, using this as a tractor for hauling materials to a job to then distribute them, throwing your tools in there, all that is good stuff. Throwing, your attachments. Now, of course, this is a front end loader, so in this case, you can put all your attachments here, strap those down, run down the road with that. But the trailer is obviously more convenient because you can get at them, and whereas in this case, you have to dump them out, turn around and grab them, and then when you want to go pick them up, because it doesn't have a 4-in-1 bucket like those fancy JCB people where they just grab their buckets. In this case, you have to drop the front end bucket, turn around, load them in, then go pick up that bucket again. If you're traveling between big jobs, that's not a big deal. But if you're sort of going 5 minutes every once in a while to do things, that's obviously not an ideal. It'd be better to have a 4-in-1 bucket or a trailer, probably. So yeah, just a few more things on the outside that occurred to me, because now I'm actually operating it, and it's actually making a difference to how I operate. Another thing, just there's always going to be so many things going on with the machine that's going to occur to me, which is this bucket. It might be a little hard to see I'm going to tilt the camera here, and you'll see that the angle of the hitch to the angle of the bottom of the bucket is basically flat. And the thing about that is it's nice when you're grading, because when you're spinning your bucket, you're always staying flat. But it does mean that when you go to dump or scoop, it's just the it's not what I'm used to, right? I'm used to buckets that have an outward scoop angle. So this will hold material a little bit better, but it doesn't dig vertically at a strange angle like I'm used to. And it doesn't empty as well as I am used to. So if you turn it sideways to shake out some material, it's not even like you're even at the full, this is only a rototill, so a 40-degree angle. So at a full 40-degree angle, it barely is dumping material out. So, I think it's a great bucket, well built, clearly good for grading, maybe not perfect for sort of more general dirt moving. And of course it's just a standard S45 on this machine. So you can go get any other Scandi bucket you want, or normal bucket, or whatever. That's one of the nice things about this system is it's pretty, there's a lot of options. Even now in the US, we've now already developed a lot of options for these standard S hitches, and they cross a bunch of different machine sizes. So typically, if you're looking for rippers and things like that, that S45 is everywhere from 6 ton up to 10, 11, 12, 13 ton. And this is technically a 13 ton machine, and it's still running, they classify it as a 12 ton excavator. It is running S45, no problem. You can put S60 on these, but it's not very common. Mostly it's 45 or 50. So